Okay. I call to order the March 13th Highland Public Workshop meeting on the Highland Park Board of Education. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies in which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger, and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns the meeting. We have a roll call.
Ms. Cassell-Dunn? Ms. Coleman? Ms. Gowan? Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Here.
Ms. Cruz?
Here.
Mr. Roslevich? Ms. Voorhees?
Here.
Mr. Woodward?
Here.
Okay, I'd like to move that we recess to executive session. Be it resolved pursuant to the Sunshine Act, NJSA 10:4-12 and 13. The Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in closed session to discuss a legal matter and a personnel issue. These exemptions are permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with NJSA 10:40-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. I think I know what to do at the beginning.
I second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I move that we reconvene to regular public workshop session. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to the agenda. We had 2 communications this month. From Elizabeth Wheel Greenberg and Sarah Haber, both in relation to our start times. I don't think we have any minutes to approve, so we're going to move right towards superintendent reports.
For urban school, our staff is enjoying participating in March Madness Fun. We invite all our students to wear green on Friday, and also we will show our support for World Down Syndrome Day on March 21st. We will all rock our socks to support what makes all of us different and yet the same. Our spring playing dance is on March 30th.
At Bartle School, Parent and Guardian Workshop for Social Emotional Learning Net will be Wednesday, March 29th from 6 to 7 p.m. and the Scholastic Book Fair will be March 20th through the 24th.
In middle school, there's a 7th grade field trip to Sterling Hill Mine on April 25th and an 8th grade trip to Dorney Park. Student council is making arrangements for a 6th grade trip as well. Parents should look out for emails with permission slips and academic and behavior contracts. So conference is tomorrow from 5 to 8, and also please make sure you are on time for your appointment. We have secured coaches for softball and baseball. More information to come about those schedules. Soccer is selling sunglasses to support their mission. Be on the lookout. The Highland Park Middle School cheerleading team is having a spirit wear sale. Orders will be placed online to the link below. The online store will remain open.
And for the high school, the theme for the senior prom on June 1st is going to be Old Hollywood, and the seniors will be going to Dorney Park for their senior trip. There will be a half day on Wednesday due to parent-teacher conferences, which are from 5 to 8 p.m. Testing for juniors also started today and will continue through Friday, excluding Wednesday, and the testing room assignments are located on the red bulletin board in Center Hall. We would also like to congratulate T. Atwater, who set the track and field indoor school record at the Meet of Champions in the 3200 with a time of 11:41. And also congratulations to the DECA Club. They were very successful at states in Atlantic City. Also, Do You Have the Love of the Irish? Starting on March 13th, the PTSO sponsored the Hidden Shamrock. Every day between March 13th and 17th, A rainbow shamrock will be hidden somewhere in HPHS. The first person to find it and bring it to Miss Duvers will win a prize. We will conclude the week with a St. Patrick's Day trivia question on Friday. Good luck, Owls. The Highland Borough has posted its summer camp counseling jobs. Students entering grade 10 and above should go to www.hpborough.org. Application links can be found under employment opportunities, and the links have also been blasted out via Naviance. And lastly, the Time of the Month Period Project and the Teen Center will be hosting a menstrual product drive to help end period poverty. The products will be collected during the month of March, Women's History Month. Pink bins will be located by the front doors of the high school and near the cafeteria. Products will be given to the National Council of Jewish Women to be distributed to a local domestic violence shelter. Please donate menstrual products for the month of March to help end period poverty.
Thank you. That's a lot of great information. Any questions?
Do you have the HP brief this weekend? It went really well. I don't have any specifics, but I was able to hear from a bunch of peers who were able to go, and it was really fun and great.
Oh, so
I also want to share that the high school music chili cook-off was a great success. Rob, do you want to share? I saw you partaking in some deliciousness.
It was delicious. I'm disappointed that my wife did not win. But and the goat chili. Oh my goodness, that was unexpected. But I mean, everything there was outstanding. It's always such a great event, and I'm glad it came off this year successfully as well.
And they raised $1,300 for the music program, so that'll help offset the cost of trips and things like that. So fantastic.
Thank you. We do not, Superintendent's report will be next. Dr. Croce does not have a report this week. We'll meet next week again, and she will be working at presenting on the preliminary budget. So stay tuned for that. That'll be next week. So we are going to go right to committee reports. And Mark, you're going to curriculum instruction?
Yes, I'm going to do curriculum and instruction this week. We met on March 7th with myself, Michelle, Jen, and Christina, and Lisa Saka, and Michelle Rodriguez from the administration. We discussed the Math 6+ data and updates. Discussed, of course, the background, detracking and enriching the Math 6 with Math 7 concepts. This year, working harder on developing a curriculum which stresses deeper mastery, so better assessments can be made of students as they move on to one of three choices, either Math 7, pre-algebra, or algebra. And again, more assessments of proficiency being done this year. An interesting note from last year's Math 6+ is fewer 7th grade students are taking pre-algebra and algebra this year. Part of this is pandemic related, and some of it may be a function of better assessment, showing more students weren't ready to move on. We discussed the Bartle and middle school DOE assessment standard for ESSA, and discussed that. This year, because it hasn't been done in the past few years, the only criteria used was the results from the New Jersey SLA. One point is that students cannot opt out of that, and the other are that the DOE assessment doesn't include improvement evaluations. In other words, we've done better than we did previously, which was a fairly large part of the assessments in the past, and other criteria. Also, the state is doing this because it's required by federal law. In 2020 and 2021, middle school improvement goals were met, so that's good news. Unfortunately, middle school evaluation needs improvement for economically disadvantaged students, which were, I think, at around 1% below cutoff, so that should not be a problem moving forward. And Black/African American students, though, did need improvement. And in Bartle School, these same groups need improvement, plus the Hispanic students and students with disabilities, again, some of them being very close to the cutoff line. And we're eligible to exit the status of needing improvement in June of 2024. We did not discuss the substance abuse program, prevention programs, nor did we discuss AP statistics. And we did discuss that policy 5460, high school graduation, will come up for first reading on March 13th. Actually, it's on the agenda, but it won't be voted on, I guess, for first reading until next week. And actually, before we get there, I did have a note from a former board member who read it and let me know that we hadn't changed some of the words they were relating to what the current high school graduation requirements are from the state, at the state level. But by the time I got to it, Michelle Rodriguez had updated it. She updated it Friday, and it looks like it took that into account, so that's very good. And that's the report. Before we move on, does anyone have any questions? So then, otherwise, I'll go on to the agenda. Pretty straightforward. Okay, I'm going to go forward. So this, again, we'll vote on these next week. Resolution to approve field trip requests is number 1. Number 2 is a resolution to approve a collaboration between Middlesex College and Highland Park Public Schools. It's a free service being used as an on-site resource to liaison Middlesex College through our high school administrative staff, teachers, students, and their families. And the coordinator will assist our students through an enrollment process and share resources about scholarships, grant opportunities, and financial aid options. And they'll be with us 4 hours a week from March through June of this year. Number 3 is a resolution to approve a high school educational trip sponsored and funded by Aspire High mentoring programs. And there are 5 different locations that are being sponsored. And then resolution on number 4, it will be to approve the Emergency Sports Injury Action Plan. And that's it.
Any questions for Victor? Middlesex County College organization also. Doesn't work there, but I think it's free and I think it's great, yeah, for some students to get started on it. Equity and excellence, Monique's not here, but I think she reported last time anyway, right?
That we're repeating
Okay, sure. Then Chris, you're up to the finance facilities.
Okay, so we discussed the problems with administering the before and after care program. So Christina presented us with a couple of options about how to administer the program. Her recommendation is really to, well, there were 2 options presented. One was an in-house administrator who we really hope to be somebody who knows how to run a child care business. And then the other option is outsource it to our organization that has expertise in this. And the advantage of having an outsourced organization run it, there would be a number of advantages. Bring in some new programming. They're eligible to apply for grants that we're not eligible for. There are also some liability issues with the way that we're doing it now. And lastly, a number of committee members favor the outsourcing option. Just because we've added a lot of issues on the central leadership team's plate, such as the pre-K expansion, and it would be great to take something off their plate so they can really focus on things like that. So anyway, I believe the superintendent's planning to ask one of these organizations to come in and present. But anyway, we'll be discussing that more at the next meeting or maybe the meeting after that. Unfortunately, all of the options are going to involve some substantial price increases for families involved in the program, and that's going to come as a shock. There's several issues. One is that we just haven't raised the prices for 10 years or more. Another issue is just that the cost of running the program has gone up. We're paying the people involved more. And the third issue is the administrator. We really like someone who has expertise. Okay, and so the next issue we discussed was the full-day preschool expansion. So we're again discussed the modular classrooms. debate about whether we need an option on a third year of the lease for the modulars that we're looking into right now. The architects have been asked to comment on the expansion, not only the urban expansion, but also building on the vacant property. So that's one of the agenda items. There was a proposal to buy out unused sick days. The safety committee has been working through the various items on a really long list that the safety audit came back with. There are a couple of sidebar agreements, one for paraprofessionals on challenging assignments and one on Schedule B. So those are linked in the meeting minutes if you want to look at those. There's a discussion about the possibly hiring an assistant principal for Bartle, and there was an update on the FEMA grant applications. So that was just the meeting. As far as the agenda items go, one is the bill list, two expense reimbursements, three professional services, which are listed there. 4 is the busing for the, this is not the main part of the busing contract. 5 is the bedside instruction. 6 is the HPEF grant fund, so thank you very much to the foundation again for their support. There's 7 is the item about expanding the feasibility for the pre-K expansion. 8 is acceptance of the donation. And 9 is also regarding a donation from the Citizens for Global Solutions, so thank you. Any questions?
Questions from finance? Okay, if there's no questions from the board, we'll move along to personnel, which I think I'm doing. See if I can wing that. No, I thought I was, right. So we met on March the 8th, and it was Ann and Rob and myself with Dr. Nicosia. I'll go back to the agenda in a minute. We'll do a couple of the items that are off the agenda, and then we'll go to the agenda. We need to vote on 4 personnel issues tonight, the library workshop meeting. When we discussed the director of facilities, the hiring timeline, and in fact there are a number of really good candidates. And tonight we have on your agenda, you have a resume of the person that is being recommended for the position. So we were very fortunate to get some good candidates, and this person was recommended by the committee. So we're going to be voting on that. There's a, not for vote, but we discussed the sidebar with the HPEA for change to paraprofessional agreement. There had been a request, over the last couple of months to help out the paraprofessionals who are in the most challenging assignments. And so the sidebar agreement that we will vote on next meeting will raise salaries of the paraprofessionals that are in the self-contained program, $1.75 an hour. And there's a couple other issues on there, but you can read that sidebar. There's a really interesting article, which actually I've tried to put out to the board overall, there's an article that Dr. Koji shared with us about why aren't there more teachers of color. Even though New Jersey is such a diverse state, it's becoming more diverse. And it's obviously something that has to be discussed in academic excellence, discussed in personnel, and here, and not that it's helpful to know that everybody else is doing the same, in the same situation, but it is interesting reading. I'll share with everybody. It kind of sort of explains the issue a little bit. Didn't have a lot of suggestions that I recall, but it definitely illustrated the problem. And one that we've been working on, Coach has been working hard to try to connect with outside resources to get us teachers or staff in general that more reflective of our student population. That seemed to be the goal. And then the last thing we discussed, as well as they did in finance, is the initial discussion of hiring assistant principal at Bartle. The school is comparable to the size of the high school in terms of having 4 grades, and we've been a lot of challenging behaviors, and it takes a lot of the principal's time to deal with the investigations and to support staff that are struggling with students. So, which takes time away from the instructional leadership, which we would like to see our principals doing more of. So it's something, again, it's initial discussions and certainly open to feedback from the board here, but that's something that is on the radar for us to be talking about. Going back to agenda items, number one is approval of John Flanagan as Director of Facilities, and we're gonna vote on that shortly. We're gonna be looking for approval on the interim school, on an interim school psychologist, part-time at a per diem rate. Approval of some administrative support and services because somebody's out of medical leave there, so we need some help in that office. And we are going to be voting on termination of an employee who's used all their sick days and now has been no call, no show. So those four items we will be voting on tonight, and then the rest is the more typical stuff. Source for teacher sublist, a leave of absence, a number of unpaid leave of absence for an employee, change of dates for medical leave, pretty much standard, a translator, some additional hours, so further support the Ed Services Office in the absence of their administrative assistant, toileting stipends, the sidebar that we talked about for paraprofessionals, some additional teaching sections to cover for a teacher who's on medical leave, extension of medical leave, approval of resignation, ultimately that person, approval of a paraprofessional at Irving, transfer of a lunch para from lunch para to full-time para, approving 2 high school students to be volunteer assistants for the before and after care program. That's volunteer. And I think that's it. Questions on personnel? Wait. Okay. If you have questions, we're here. What's next? I'm gonna be back in Oh, policy, that's me too. That's right. Keep talking, all right. My favorite thing to do. Policy is really easy. We had just 2 agenda items. And one was the news that, which you kind of know, that there's an audit done. Susan Adano worked on it, and just to confirm that all our policies are in fact up to date. The audit, which I can send out the link to everybody, actually had 21 pages of policies that Strauss and Esme checked off on our list, so that was awesome. And the only policy that we discussed, and that's one that Mark just mentioned, is the high school graduation requirements. So we also had questions on it, and one issue was how it would be phased in. So I believe that's been updated on the policy, that this would start with the class of, remind me, 2026, right? So freshmen, when they start after 2026, would be impacted by the 120-hour requirement. Everybody before that would stick with the 135, the class of 23, 24, and 25. The big change in this, so that's really what we had talked about before already, but the big change is we really talked about the service hours requirement for 25 hours. And we just weren't, that's not in here. Okay, I'm looking at you a second. So we talked about it, we just weren't sure at this point that we were ready for it. And so it is important to move forward with the 120 credits so we can kind of get that in the books. And then have conversations about the service and the community service hours. Combination of making sure that it was reasonable for students to do, which sounds like it is, but I guess there were some questions whether we phase it in or don't, and then how you manage it. My question really in policy is who's going to do this, right? Somebody who has accrued hours of their time to manage record keeping, and so until that's all determined, we thought not to put it in policy. So this is going to be on the next week's agenda for first read. That's it for policy. Any questions on that? Okay. First one. Oh, there we go. Thank you. can talk and facilitate this. Okay, we're going to public comment. Let me get my little piece here. Okay, so this is our first public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved time for your public comments. Board policies 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. As we always do, this is a 3-minute, speakers have up to 3 minutes, and Linda will keep time for us. And I'll try to, I'll remind you as we get close to the end of the 3 minutes. So if you want to speak, you can raise your virtual hand, and then you'll give us your name and address. We have just one speaker in the room, so we usually start with the room, so if you want to get started.
John Kovac, 206 North 3rd Avenue. You change school start times to benefit high school students, but to the disadvantage of parents and children of Bartle Elementary School. Supported by yet another questionable survey and enacted without due notice to concerned parties, you justify this on grounds of so-called equity, thus implying that a hypothetical equitable scale unfairly favors Bartle students at the expense of certain high school students. There is a curious hidden relationship between these time changes and your plan to reduce by more than 10% to 120 credits required for high school graduation. Dr. Nicosia stated on February 6th that the markedly decreased high school graduation rate is due to economic stresses requiring students to obtain jobs to support families. If so, the credit cut might permit more low-income students to graduate under less rigorous criteria. These students would include those from high school described by Dr. Nicosia as low-income students of color who live in outlying apartments off River Road, the same ones who, supposedly, will benefit from the busing schedule changes responsible for the earlier start time at Bartle. But what if their high school dropout rate is related not to economic stresses, but to educational failure? If so, the start time changes and credit cuts cover up this failure, needlessly lower standards across the board, and shortchange everyone. The New Jersey Department of Education school performance records are instructive. The most recent records available are for the school year 2020-2021. The overall Highland Park graduation rate for 2020-2021 is 86.7%. That same school year, the rate for Middlesex was 92.2%, Edison 94.2%, Metuchen 94.8%, and East Brunswick 95.9%. In the 5 prior years, the lowest overall rate for Highland Park was 93.28, the highest 95.6. The graduation rate for Highland Park African American students in 2021 was a shockingly low 76.9%, compared with 91.7 in Middlesex, 88.1 in Edison, 96.4 in Piscataway, and 90% in East Brunswick. All these neighboring towns suffered similar economic hardships. All start earlier than Highland Park. All but one require more than 120 credits to graduate. All endured COVID, yet only Highland Park fell off the cliff. So do not blame a lack of equity for the poor results of our most vulnerable students. Rather, look in the mirror and question the wisdom of teaching them that they are victims of a racist system when they must succeed in this system to graduate from high school and keep the start times as they are.
You have a speaker's number?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, Joseph Stanio, 208 North 3rd Avenue. Dealing with proposed start time changes, back again, of course. I'm curious as to know how the board got the idea for the later start times to begin with, and why this is such a fight. Was there pressure from a group of parents or some other unspoken source? Why would you continue to spend so much time on one concern? And why did you continue the process even though after the survey there were no overwhelming support for it? I have a survey summary here provided by the district through a public records request. Are you in favor of the delayed start time? There are 664 students, only 576 households answered. Of the 664, 145 voted yes for both. 81 yes for high schoolers. 19 yes for middle schoolers. So that is a 36.9% of those students voted for yes. Then we have no for both, 127, no for high schoolers, 62, and no for middle schoolers, that's 20, so that's 31.4. Fairly comparable, but yet there were another 45 that were indifferent. There were 77 that weren't sure, and another 88 preferred not to answer. That's another 31.6%. So that 63% did not go along with the proposal, and no one was surveyed from either Bartle or Irving. There was no mention of Bartle or Irving in any of these surveys. There's so many questions in this survey, but again, nothing for Bartle or Irving. I'm wondering, did you maybe first approve the idea haphazardly only to focus on the middle school and high school with no actual plan? Then start playing with the start times only to realize the only way to make it work would be to flip the whole district schedule upside down. Then convince each other that a 15 to 20 minute shift is no big deal to them and should be fine. Yet ignore surveying the Irving and Bartle parents, fearing you had already spent so much time on it, you didn't want pushback and didn't want to nix it or to start over, and had made it that far. It just seems that you had no idea or no real plan prior to the approval of the idea. Once the parents of Bartle and Irving were informed of the proposed start time, we reached out right away, and no one wanted to listen or consider our perspective. A proposal is when it's under consideration, but our feedback was not considered. You are trying to fix a problem for the high school and middle school, only to create the same exact problem in Irving and Bartle. Today the sunrise was at 7:13. A sunrise in mid-December through mid-January is about 7:21, and you're expecting my child to walk 15 minutes in the dark in the wintertime. Please rescind this proposed start time, and please give yourself another year to come up with a different plan. Please stand down, don't waste your time or the school money fighting an unjust fight. Thank you.
Did you speak?
You have someone online?
I think we did it in the room first, so you.
Afternoon. My name is Chris Espinosa, and I live in Douglas Glen 148. But besides the idea of the starting time at 7:45, I'm also believe it's a bit unreasonable for a kid who says before 8 a.m., especially without the support from the community of extra buses or something. I do want to bring more attention to the modular classrooms though, and I do feel like more data is necessary to determine the impact of covering the playing area for 50%, while increases the number of students that will be at Irving School. The place that those 4 classrooms are going to be placed on a temporary basis, and there's a year or something at the cost of 100,000. That's, I don't know if I'm off the charts on numbers or something. Feel free to let me know otherwise. But the 4 classrooms will catch, as I said before, the playing area by 50%. Increasing the number of students will naturally translate in the lowering of service. I know we want to offer better service to everybody, then the expansion of PK, but if we lower the quality of service for the students at Irving, we are doing ourselves a bad favor. I know we want to do this quickly, and I think that's the right decision, but since we have 5 years to do it, maybe taking a little extra time to do something so we know for sure we're not sacrificing something, because now I think we are risking the quality of life at Irving a lot. Needless to say, this modular classroom will impact the same group of parents who will be impacted by the 7:45 starting time at Harvard. I think it's it will be interesting to think about either a temporal solution for the coming year that does not translate on these modular classrooms in Irving, or think about leasing a different space. The state give us 5 years. I'm not saying we have to wait the 5 years, but maybe 1 extra year. While also thinking about giving a solution to the parents that will depend on this new service, I think would be useful. Thank you a lot for opening the space for us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody online that wants to speak? Raise your hand. Seeing none, we are going to, yeah. So we're gonna go back to the agenda, and what we need to do is, vote on items that were in the personnel agenda. So, so there's one read-in. Yes. Okay, so we're changing the, what's on the agenda, we're changing in number 1, the date on or after March 14th, it's being a festival. So that's on, that is the recommendation of the superintendent to approve John Flanagan, Director of Facilities, and it's effective on or after March 14th, pending from the background checks. And the rather, otherwise I move that we approve items 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the personnel agenda. Second?
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Yes.
Ms. Bruce?
Yes.
Mr. Rizlovich?
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Okay, we have to pass the next one. For the point of the president's report, I was going to take, since we're in open time tonight, I was going to take us a couple of minutes just to talk about some of all the work that's going on in the district. And using from the Board of Ed's perspective and from Dr. Nicozia's and the administration. Over the last few weeks, I didn't count them, I should have, but Finance and Facilities has met with every administrator that has a line item in the budget. And so we thank those administrators who came to our meetings. They went through their budget, going over anything that we questioned or anything that they wanted to explain that was either going up or down in cost. And then of course all those numbers then go to Linda, upon Dr. Nicosia to come up with that preliminary budget. So a lot of work, a lot of time on the part of the board and on the part of the district. It's come up with a budget that will allow us to do things we want to do for the district and still keep us financially sound and accountable to the public. So thank you for everybody doing that. That's all happening while, even as our speaker said, we're working on pre-K, how to expand it, how to house a certain number of students next year and going forward, as well as some of the work being done with forward aftercare program to make that the best that it can be going forward. So it is a busy time, and thank everybody who's working on that to make it happen, the board's end, the district's end. And then the other piece I had from the board was that we made some progress on strategic planning. So we are going to meet on April 18th with Dr. Kosher, myself, 3 board members, because that's all we can have to make it less than 5, with Patricia Reese from the New Jersey School Boards Association to talk about the options for strategic planning and the scope that we want and setting a timeline to do it in the next school year. So that's also moving forward. So that's it on my thoughts. Anybody have anything for old business? Okay, or new business? All right. Then we're back to public comment. It's great. It's not even snowing out yet, so we're doing well here. That's the last time it was snowing out, and we're like, watching the things. Okay, enough of that minutes. The Highland Park Board of Education, we're going to go back to public comment. Welcome to public participation, and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. So if anybody wants to speak, it's only those who are virtual. Please raise your hand. Seeing none, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.